Your life changes the moment you stop living as the old you. Most people don't even see it happening. They wake up, think the same thoughts, make the same choices, and repeat the same days. Then they wonder why nothing feels different. You're not stuck because life is unfair. You're stuck because you've built a habit of being the same version of yourself over and over. Breaking the habit of being yourself is about calling that out. It's about looking at the way you've been living and asking, is this really me, or just who I've gotten used to being? It's deciding that your past no longer gets to choose your future. This isn't about chasing a completely different life overnight. It's about taking control of your thoughts, actions, and habits so they match the person you want to become. Once you do that, you stop replaying yesterday and start building a tomorrow worth waking up for. Chapter 1. Recognize how your daily patterns are quietly shaping your future. Every day, whether you see it or not, your life is moving in a certain direction, and that direction is determined by the patterns you repeat. Your future is not shaped by what you occasionally do, it is shaped by what you do consistently. Your daily actions, your daily decisions, your daily thoughts. They are creating a path and you are walking on it, whether you are aware of it or not. If you want a better future, you must first see what is shaping it today. Think about how you start your mornings. Do you wake up with purpose, ready to work on what matters most? Or do you reach for your phone and scroll through meaningless updates? How you begin your day often predicts how the rest of it will unfold. That first hour is not just another 60 minutes. It is the foundation for the hours that follow. If your start is weak and distracted, the rest of your day will struggle to gain strength. And if you do that most days, your life will reflect it. Patterns are dangerous because they are quiet. They are comfortable. They become so normal you stop noticing them. You no longer question them. You just keep doing them because they feel familiar, and that familiarity convinces you they are harmless. But nothing is harmless if it is quietly stealing your potential. Look at your work habits. If you avoid the hard, important work and choose the easy, less valuable work, that is a pattern, and over time it tells your mind and your future that you are comfortable with less. If you never challenge yourself to learn a new skill or deepen your expertise, that is a pattern too, and it will keep you exactly where you are. Look at your health choices. If most of your days are spent sitting, eating without thought, skipping exercise, or staying up too late, that is a pattern, and it will shape not only your body, but your energy, your confidence, and your mental clarity. Over time, it will decide how strong you feel, how much you can work, and even how long you can live. Look at your relationships. If you spend your time with people who complain, who avoid responsibility, who waste their potential, that is a pattern. And that environment will influence you until you carry the same habits. You may think you are in control, but the truth is, you are adapting to the people you are around most often. You may not realize it, but you are rehearsing your future every single day. If your daily patterns are strong, disciplined, and growth-focused, you are rehearsing success. If your daily patterns are lazy, reactive, and unplanned, you are rehearsing mediocrity or failure. The problem is not that people do not want to improve. Most people want better results. The problem is that they never stop to examine what they are doing every day that is keeping them where they are. They keep expecting a new future while living the same old days. And that is impossible. You cannot create a different future without changing your present patterns. That is the simple truth. You can set all the goals you want, you can read every book, you can attend every seminar, but if your daily actions stay the same, your results will stay the same. So, how do you change? It starts with awareness. Before you can break a pattern, you must see it clearly. Spend a few days observing yourself. Pay attention to how you start your mornings, how you spend your working hours, how you deal with challenges, how you end your nights. Notice the routines you repeat without thinking. Some of them might be harmless, others might be holding you back. You cannot fight what you cannot see. Once you see your patterns, ask yourself one question. If I keep doing this every day for the next 5 years, where will it take me? This is a powerful question because it forces you to connect today's habits with tomorrow's reality. If the answer scares you, that is your signal to change. Start small. You do not have to fix everything at once, but you do have to fix something. Choose one pattern that is doing the most damage. Replace it with a new one that moves you forward. If you waste your mornings, replace that with a productive routine. Reading, planning your day, doing your most important task first. If you waste hours on distractions, replace them with focused work sessions. If you skip exercise, replace it with short, consistent workouts. Consistency is more important than intensity. A small change repeated daily is far more powerful than a big change done once in a while. If you go to the gym once for 3 hours, you will not transform your body. But if you train for 30 minutes every day, the change will come. The same is true for learning, for building relationships, for earning more money. You also need to protect yourself from falling back into your old patterns. This means designing your environment to make the new habit easier and the old habit harder. If you want to eat better, remove the junk food from your house. If you want to work without distractions, keep your phone away during work hours. If you want to read more, keep a book where you can see it. The smallest adjustments in your environment can make a big difference in your behavior. Another part of breaking old patterns is paying attention to your triggers. Many habits are tied to specific situations, places, or emotions. If you always grab unhealthy snacks when you feel stressed, you need a different response to stress. If you scroll on your phone every night before bed, you need a different wind-down routine. Identify the trigger and replace the response. And remember this, patterns are not just about what you do, they are also about what you avoid. If you always avoid hard conversations, that is a pattern. If you avoid starting new projects because you fear failure, that is a pattern. These avoidance habits are just as damaging as bad active habits because they keep you from growth. Breaking the habit of being yourself is not about hating who you are. It is about refusing to accept a version of yourself that settles for less than what you are capable of. It is about deciding that your future is worth the discomfort of change. It is about trading what is familiar for what is better. It will not be easy. Your old patterns are comfortable because they are known. Your brain will try to keep you there. It will tell you it is safer to do what you have always done. But safety does not build a meaningful life. Comfort does not create greatness. And familiarity does not lead to growth. You have to choose. You can continue living on repeat, letting old habits decide your future, or you can disrupt the cycle, replace the patterns, and create a life that feels alive. The choice is always yours. But remember, time will pass either way, and in 5 years, you will either thank yourself for starting today or regret that you didn't. If you want to see change, look at what you are repeating. If you want a better life, design better days. If you want a different future, live differently now. You have more power than you think, but that power only works when you use it. Right now is your opportunity. Not next week, not next month, now. Recognize your patterns, break the ones that hold you back, build the ones that push you forward, and watch how your future changes, one intentional day at a time. Chapter 2. Question every belief that has stopped you from growing, Everything you believe about yourself shapes how you live. Some of those beliefs are helping you, others are holding you in place. The problem is, most people never stop to ask where those beliefs came from, or if they are even true. They accept them as facts, when in reality they are often just old conclusions based on limited experiences. And when those beliefs are not challenged, they quietly control every decision, every risk you take, and every opportunity you let pass by. Think about it. Somewhere along the way you decided what kind of person you are. Maybe you told yourself you are not smart enough to achieve certain goals. Maybe you decided you are not outgoing enough to build meaningful relationships. Maybe you convinced yourself you do not have the talent or resources to succeed in a specific field. None of these ideas are absolute truths, but once they took root in your mind, you began to live as if they were. The first step to growth is to realize that beliefs are choices. You may have learned them from your parents, teachers, friends, or past experiences, but you are the one carrying them forward. If they are keeping you small, you can replace them, but you have to see them clearly before you can do anything about them. Start by listening to your own inner language. Pay attention to the thoughts that appear when you consider doing something new. If your first reaction is, "I can't," or "I'm not that kind of person," that is a belief speaking. If you hear, "That will never work for me," before you even try, that is a belief speaking. These quick, automatic reactions are often signals that you are letting an old idea make your decisions for you. Some beliefs were formed when you were much younger, at a time when you did not have the experience or perspective you have now. Maybe you failed at something once and concluded you would never succeed at it. Maybe someone you respected told you that you were not cut out for a certain path, and you believed them. You carried that statement forward, repeating it to yourself until it became part of your identity. But if you look closely, you will see that those early experiences were not final verdicts. They were just moments in time. When you stop and question those beliefs, you create space for a new possibility. Ask yourself, is this belief actually true? Not, does it feel true? Because feelings can be misleading. But, can I prove this is true in every situation? Most of the time, the answer is no. What you will find is that the belief has exceptions, holes, and flaws. And if it is not always true, you cannot let it control you. Another powerful question is, where did this belief come from? Trace it back to its source. Did you pick it up from a parent who lived with fear and passed it down to you? Did you accept it after a single failure and decide it applied forever? Did it come from someone who did not know your full potential? When you see the source, it becomes easier to decide if you want to keep carrying it. Once you identify a limiting belief, you have to replace it with a stronger one. You cannot just remove it and leave a gap, because the old thought will find its way back. Replacing it means choosing a belief that moves you forward. For example, instead of, "I'm not good at meeting new people," you might adopt, "I can learn to connect with others if I practice." Instead of, "I'm terrible at managing money," you might say, "I can get better at managing money by learning and applying new skills." The replacement does not have to be unrealistically positive. It just has to point you toward growth. Beliefs are strengthened by repetition. That means you have to reinforce your new belief by acting on it. If you believe you can learn to connect with others, you have to practice conversations. If you believe you can improve your money habits, you have to start managing your spending and saving. Each time you take action, you give your new belief more weight and weaken the old one. One of the hardest parts of questioning your beliefs is dealing with the discomfort it creates. You may feel resistance when you challenge something you have believed for years. You may feel fear when you step into an unfamiliar identity. But remember, discomfort is not danger. It is a sign you are stepping beyond your mental boundaries. If you run from that feeling, you will stay trapped in the same box. You must also be careful about the people you surround yourself with. If your environment reinforces your limiting beliefs, growth becomes harder. For example, if you are trying to believe you can succeed in business, but spend your time with people who constantly talk about how hard it is to make money, you will find yourself pulled back to your old mindset. Surround yourself with people who believe in possibilities. Listen to those who have achieved what you want to achieve. Their perspective will challenge the limits you have placed on yourself. Another practical step is to test your beliefs through small experiments. If you believe you cannot learn a new skill, take a course and see what happens. If you believe you are not a good leader, volunteer to lead a small project and observe your performance. These tests create real evidence that can either confirm or disprove your belief. More often than not, you will find that you are far more capable than you thought. It is also important to remember that your mind naturally looks for evidence to support what it already believes. If you believe you are bad at public speaking, you will remember every time you stumbled and forget every time you spoke well. To change this, you must actively look for evidence that supports your new belief. Keep track of your progress. Write down moments when you succeed in small ways. Over time, these examples will outweigh the old ones and build confidence in your new perspective. Do not confuse challenging your beliefs with doubting your worth. This is not about finding more reasons to criticize yourself. It is about realizing you have been living with ideas that do not serve you and deciding to upgrade them. The goal is not perfection, it is progress. You are not trying to erase your past, but to stop letting it limit your future. Some beliefs are harder to change because they are tied to your identity. You might believe, "I'm a shy person," or "I'm just not disciplined." These feel permanent because you have repeated them for so long, but even identity-based beliefs can change if you act in new ways. If you tell yourself you are shy, but start speaking up in small situations, your identity will shift. If you tell yourself you are not disciplined, but start keeping one small commitment each day, you will begin to see yourself differently. Breaking free from limiting beliefs is a lifelong process. New ones will appear as you face new challenges. The key is to stay aware. Make it a habit to examine the beliefs behind your decisions. Ask yourself regularly, is this belief helping me grow or keeping me stuck? If it is keeping you stuck, it is your responsibility to replace it. When you commit to this process, your life changes in ways you could not have predicted. Opportunities appear because you are no longer rejecting them before they arrive. You begin to take actions that once felt impossible. You start building a track record of success that reinforces your new identity. And over time, you realize that the limits you once believed in were never real. They were just unchallenged thoughts. You have the ability to question every belief that has stopped you from growing. You have the ability to choose new ones that open doors instead of closing them. And you have the ability to live a life that is not dictated by the past, but created by conscious choice. Every belief you upgrade is a step toward the person you can become. The work is not easy, but the reward is freedom. The freedom to live without the invisible chains you have been carrying for far too long.
Chapter 3. Notice when you are repeating the same unhelpful choices. Every outcome you live with today is the result of choices you have made over time. Some of those choices have served you well, others have quietly worked against you. The ones that hold you back are often not dramatic or obvious. They are the small, repeated decisions that seem harmless in the moment, but add up to create a direction you may not want. The challenge is that most people never notice they are making the same unhelpful choices again and again. They think they are deciding in the moment, but in reality they are following a script they have run hundreds of times before. This is why awareness is so powerful. You cannot correct what you do not recognize. If you want to grow, you must start by seeing your patterns as they happen, not just in hindsight. That means paying attention to the moments when you are about to make a familiar decision. Watch for the signs that you are repeating yourself. Sometimes it is the same excuse you always use to avoid taking action. Sometimes it is the same reaction to a situation that has frustrated you in the past. Sometimes it is the same habit you fall back on when you feel tired, stressed, or uncertain. The truth is, life presents many crossroads each day. The choice you make in those moments can move you closer to your goals or keep you locked in place. If you are not careful, you will choose the familiar option simply because it feels comfortable, even when you know it does not lead to the results you want. The familiar is seductive because it requires no effort. It allows you to stay inside the boundaries you have already set for yourself. But every time you choose it, you are reinforcing a cycle you may desperately want to break. One reason people repeat unhelpful choices is that they underestimate the cost of each decision. They think, it's just this one time or I'll make a better choice tomorrow. But small actions repeated often are never just one time. They create habits. And habits create results. If you choose to procrastinate today, you make it easier to procrastinate tomorrow. If you skip the important work now, you train yourself to do it again later. Over time, this becomes the path of least resistance, and your future bends in that direction. Another reason is emotional comfort. Many unhelpful choices give you a short burst of relief. For example, avoiding a difficult conversation lets you escape the tension for now, but it keeps the problem alive. Giving in to distractions feels good in the moment, but it leaves you further from your goals. These short-term comforts are deceptive. They feel like wins, but they are actually trades. You give up long-term progress for a few minutes of ease. The first step to changing this is to become an observer of your own behavior. Do not wait until the end of the day to think about what you did wrong. Pay attention while it is happening. If you notice yourself reaching for the same easy option you always take, pause. Ask yourself if this is truly moving you forward or if you are just falling back into a comfortable pattern. You can also keep a record of your recurring decisions. Write down the times you choose avoidance over action, comfort over challenge, or distraction over focus. After a week or two, review the list. Patterns will appear. You may see that you avoid certain types of work at the same time each day. You may find that certain emotions trigger the same behavior repeatedly. This awareness gives you a map of where you are most likely to repeat unhelpful choices. Once you have identified those moments, prepare an alternative response. If you usually avoid a task because it feels overwhelming, commit to working on it for a short, specific amount of time instead. If you tend to choose distraction when you are stressed, decide in advance on a healthier way to manage that stress, like a walk, a short break, or a few minutes of deep focus on something meaningful. Having a plan in place makes it easier to choose differently when the moment arrives. Breaking these cycles also requires honesty. You have to admit to yourself that the choices you are making are not harmless. You have to acknowledge that they are contributing to results you do not want. It is tempting to downplay the damage or tell yourself you will change later. But those are just more ways of avoiding responsibility. Nothing changes until you decide to take full ownership of your behavior, even the small decisions you wish you could ignore. It also helps to connect each choice to the bigger picture. If you understand how today's decision influences tomorrow's reality, it becomes harder to dismiss. For example, skipping an important workout may not seem like a big deal in isolation, but if you see it as part of a chain that affects your health, energy, and confidence, you may be more motivated to follow through. The same goes for work habit. Ignoring an opportunity today might not hurt in the short term, but if you see it as part of a habit of missed opportunities, the urgency to change becomes stronger. The people you spend time with can also play a role in whether you repeat unhelpful choices. If your environment is filled with people who make the same poor decisions, you will find it harder to break away. Their example will normalize the very habits you are trying to change. Seek out people who challenge you to choose better, who push you toward actions that align with your goal. Being around them will make it easier to notice when you are slipping back into old patterns. One of the most important things to remember is that changing your choices is not just about willpower. It is about designing your environment for success. If you want to avoid distractions, remove them from your workspace. If you want to stop wasting money, make spending harder by using only planned budgets. If you want to eat healthier, stock your kitchen with better options. By making the unhelpful choice harder to make, you reduce the temptation to repeat it. You also need to replace the satisfaction you get from unhelpful choices with something better. If avoiding a task gives you relief, find relief in completing it instead. Reward yourself for making the right decision, even in small ways. Over time, you will begin to associate better choices with positive feelings, making them easier to repeat. Every change you want in your life will come down to making different choices in the moments that matter most. It is not about being perfect every time. It is about breaking the chain of repetition. If you normally make the same unhelpful choice 10 times out of 10, aim for 9, then 8. Each time you interrupt the cycle, you weaken it. Each time you choose differently, you make it easier to choose differently again. In time, you will start to notice that your default decisions are improving. You will catch yourself choosing focus over distraction, courage over avoidance, progress over comfort. These moments may feel small, but they are powerful. They signal that you are no longer running on autopilot. You are living with intention. The life you want will not appear by chance. It will be built choice by choice, day by day. And the more aware you become of your repeated unhelpful decisions, the more power you have to replace them. Every time you notice and act differently, you are writing a new story for yourself. You do not have to keep living the same day over and over. You have the ability to stop, to see clearly, and to change the path you are on. Your future will be shaped by the decisions you repeat, so choose the ones that build the life you truly want. Start noticing. Start choosing different, and keep doing it until your actions match the future you are working for.
Chapter 4. Catch yourself acting from fear instead of real desire. Fear has a way of slipping into your decisions quietly. Most of the time, you don't even recognize it for what it is. It dresses itself up as caution, as logic, as being practical, but underneath, it's the same thing. It's you holding back, because you're afraid of the outcome. When fear drives your actions, you don't move toward what you truly want. You move toward what feels safest in the moment. And over time, that safety becomes a cage. Every choice you make has a reason behind it. Sometimes that reason is rooted in genuine desire. You're pursuing something because it excites you, because it matters, because it lines up with the person you want to become. Other times, the reason is fear. You're avoiding pain, rejection, embarrassment, or uncertainty. It's not always obvious which one is driving you unless you pay attention. That's why catching yourself in those moments is critical. Fear-based decisions usually have a certain pattern. They shrink your world instead of expanding it. You might pass on an opportunity because you're not sure you're ready. You might avoid a conversation because you're worried about how the other person will react. You might turn down a challenge because you don't want to fail. Each time you do, you give fear a little more control over your life. And the more control you give it, the more it becomes your normal way of operating. Real desire feels different. When you're acting from desire, there's a sense of purpose. There's an energy that makes the effort worth it. You might still feel nervous, but the excitement outweighs the doubt. You move toward something because you know it will make you better or bring you closer to what matters most. Even when it's hard, you want to do it. The challenge is that fear often hides behind reasonable excuses. You tell yourself you don't have the time,
the money, the experience. You convince yourself that now isn't the right moment. You gather all the reasons why waiting makes sense. But if you look deeper, you'll see that those reasons are built on uncertainty, not truth. You're protecting yourself from the discomfort of risk, not from an actual danger. Catching yourself in the act starts with awareness. You have to pause when you feel hesitation and ask, why am I really saying no? Is this because I don't want it, or because I'm afraid of what might happen if I go after it? That question alone can pull the mask off fear. Many times you'll find that the only thing standing between you and the action you want to take is the thought of how it might go wrong. It's not about never feeling fear. Fear is part of being human. It's about noticing when fear is the deciding factor. If you want a different life, you can't let fear have the final say. You have to train yourself to respond differently when it shows up. Instead of retreating, you lean in. Instead of avoiding, you face it. That shift in behavior changes the entire direction of your life. Fear often shows up the moment you start thinking bigger. As soon as you imagine yourself stepping outside your comfort zone, the doubts start talking. What if you fail? What will people think? What if you're not good enough? The temptation is to back away before those thoughts get too loud. But here's the truth. Those voices don't disappear when you avoid them. They grow stronger. The only way to quiet them is to take action anyway. One way to train yourself is to make small, low-stakes decisions where you choose courage over fear. If you're nervous about speaking up in a meeting, make a point to share one idea next time. If you're afraid to network, start by introducing yourself to one person. Each time you override fear, you send a message to yourself. I can handle this. Over time, your confidence grows. Another key is separating the voice of fear from the voice of desire. They feel different if you really listen. Fear tells you to stay hidden, to avoid change, to protect what you already have. Desire pulls you towards something that matters, even if it's challenging. When you catch yourself hesitating, ask, if I had no fear, would I still want to do this? If the answer is yes, that's your cue to move forward. Fear-based living has a cost. It limits your opportunities, your growth, and your experiences. You might feel safer in the moment, but long-term, you're left with regret. You look back and see chances you never took, connections you never made, goals you never reached. Not because you couldn't, but because you didn't try. That's a heavy price to pay for comfort, acting from real desire. On the other hand, opens doors. Even when things don't work out perfectly, you gain experience, resilience, and clarity. You learn something valuable every time you choose courage. You expand your capacity, and each courageous decision makes the next one easier. Sometimes fear disguises itself as the responsible choice. You might turn down a project because you tell yourself you're not ready yet. But deep down it's because you're worried about failing. You might stay in a job you dislike because you say you're being practical, but in reality you're afraid to start over. There's nothing wrong with being practical, but make sure practicality isn't just fear, with a different name. When you start catching yourself in these moments, you'll notice something interesting. Many of the fears you have are based on things that will never happen. You imagine worst-case scenarios that never come true. You hold back because of problems that don't even exist yet. And while you're protecting yourself from imaginary dangers, real opportunities pass you by. One of the best ways to deal with fear is to decide in advance how you will act when it appears. If you wait until the moment to decide, fear will usually win. But if you've already committed to taking action, no matter how uncomfortable it feels, you're more likely to follow through. You can tell yourself, when fear shows up, I move forward anyway. Over time, that becomes your new habit. It's also important to remind yourself why you want something in the first place. Fear is loud. It shouts all the reasons you should hold back. Desire can be quieter. You have to bring it to the front of your mind. Write down your reasons. Look at them often. When the moment comes to choose, focus on those reasons. Let them guide you more than your fears. Acting from fear keeps your life small. Acting from desire expands it. Every time you choose desire, you step into a larger version of yourself. You discover abilities you didn't know you had. You experience life in a fuller way. You become someone who doesn't just dream of change. You create it. The next time you hesitate, pause and examine the reason. Ask yourself if you're protecting yourself from real harm or just from the discomfort of growth. If it's the latter, take the step. Do it while you're nervous. Do it before you talk yourself out of it. That's how you break the pattern. Your future depends on which voice you choose to follow. Fear will always try to keep you where you are. Desire will always try to move you forward. The life you want is built on the times you chose the second voice, even when the first one was screaming. If you want to grow, you must be willing to catch yourself in those fear-driven moments and replace them with bold, deliberate action. That's when you stop surviving and start truly living.
Chapter 5. Replace old reactions with responses that lead to progress. Progress is rarely stopped by the big events in life. More often, it is slowed or completely blocked by the way we react to everyday situations. When something happens, you have a choice. You can fall back on the same old reaction that has kept you stuck, or you can respond in a way that moves you forward. The difference between reaction and response is control. A reaction is automatic. It is often emotional, unplanned, and shaped by habits you may have had for years. A response is deliberate. It is guided by thought, by intention, and by the kind of future you want to create. Most people go through life reacting without thinking. They face a setback and instantly complain. They hear criticism and immediately get defensive. They encounter a challenge and quickly say, "It's impossible." These reactions feel natural because they have been repeated so many times. But what feels natural is not always what's useful. In fact, many of these automatic reactions quietly work against your goals. They close doors instead of opening them. They make situations harder instead of better. If you want to change your results, you have to change the way you respond. This begins with slowing down. Before you allow your old pattern to take over, take a moment to think. Ask yourself, will my next action help me progress, or will it keep me where I am? That pause is your chance to break the old cycle. It's the space where you choose growth instead of comfort, discipline instead of impulse. Consider the way you respond to failure. An old reaction might be to feel embarrassed, to give up, or to avoid trying again. A better response is to look for the lesson, to ask what you can do differently, and to take another step forward. That single shift can completely change your trajectory. Failure stops people not because it's final, but because they choose a reaction that keeps them stuck. Think about how you deal with criticism. If you instantly get defensive, you miss the chance to learn something valuable. But if you respond by asking questions, by understanding the perspective, and by seeing what you can improve, you turn criticism into fuel for growth. That is the power of replacing reaction with response. You turn every challenge into an opportunity to advance. Even small situations matter. If a coworker is short with you, the old reaction might be to snap back or hold a grudge. The better response is to stay calm, not take it personally, and keep your focus on your own work. Every time you respond with intention, you protect your energy and keep your momentum. Replacing old reactions requires awareness. You have to notice them in the moment. Pay attention to what triggers them. Is it when you feel disrespected? Is it when you are under pressure? Is it when you feel uncertain? Knowing your triggers allows you to prepare a better response in advance. That way, when the moment comes, you already know how you will handle it. One practical approach is to rehearse new responses.
Imagine the situations that usually bring out your worst reactions and decide how you want to handle them next time. If you tend to procrastinate when you feel overwhelmed, plan to break the task into small steps and start on just one. If you get angry when things don't go your way, plan to take a deep breath and assess your options before speaking. This kind of mental rehearsal makes it easier to respond well when it really matters. Your progress depends heavily on your ability to keep moving when things are difficult. Old reactions often slow you down because they waste time and energy. Anger, frustration, avoidance and self-pity are all heavy emotions to carry. They don't move you forward, they keep you circling the same point. A strong response does the opposite. It clears your mind, focuses your effort, and keeps you moving toward the result you want. It is also important to recognize that changing your responses will change how others see you. People notice when you handle situations with composure, thought, and purpose. They will trust you more, they will respect your decision, and they will be more willing to give you opportunities because they see you as someone who can handle them well. You must also accept that some situations will never be easy to respond to. There will be moments when you want to go back to your old ways because they are familiar. There will be times when you feel justified in reacting badly because someone else was wrong. But you have to ask yourself, does being right matter more than making progress? Most of the time it doesn't. What matters is where you end up, not how you felt in the moment. This is not about suppressing your emotions or pretending you don't feel them. It's about directing them towards something useful. If you feel frustrated, use that energy to work harder. If you feel disappointed, channel it into finding a better way. If you feel nervous, turn it into preparation. That is the difference between reaction and response. You are in control, not your emotions. Your new responses will feel awkward at first. They won't be as automatic as your old reactions. But with practice, they will become your new normal. And when they do, you will notice a shift, not only in your results, but in how you feel about yourself. You will begin to trust yourself more. You will know that you can handle whatever comes your way without losing focus. It's also worth remembering that one good response can outweigh many bad ones. You don't have to be perfect every time. You just have to win more moments than you lose. If you catch yourself reacting poorly, don't waste time feeling guilty. Shift to a better response as soon as you can. Progress is made in the recovery, not in perfection. Replacing old reactions is one of the most powerful ways to change your life, because it changes the way you interact with the world. It puts you in control of your path. It allows you to make decisions that match the person you want to become, not the person you used to be. And over time, those decisions compound into results you could not have reached any other way. Your future is not just shaped by what happens to you, it's shaped by how you respond to what happens. Every day will bring situations you cannot control, but you can always control your response. If you respond with discipline, clarity and purpose, you will keep moving toward progress, no matter what stands in your way. And when that becomes your habit, there is very little you cannot achieve. Chapter 6. Start behaving like the person you keep imagining becoming. Every person carries an image in their mind of the kind of life they want and the kind of person they hope to become. You have it, too. Somewhere inside you there is a clear picture of your best self, how you would look, how you would work, how you would speak, the way you would handle challenges, the quality of relationships you would have, and the level of success you would achieve. The problem for most people is that they treat this vision like a distant dream rather than a present responsibility. They keep imagining it without stepping into it. They wait for some future moment when the conditions feel right, when they have more confidence, more resources, or more time. But that moment never comes. The truth is, you do not become that person first and then act like them. You act like them first, and through those actions you become them. The distance between where you are and where you want to be is not as wide as you think. What makes it seem far is the gap between your current behavior and the behavior of the person you imagine. If the person you want to become is disciplined but you keep making decisions from laziness or avoidance, the gap grows. If the person you want to be is confident but you keep hiding from opportunities, the gap grows. If the person you want to be is financially free but you keep spending impulsively and avoiding smart financial moves, the gap grows. Every day you act in ways that contradict the person you want to become. You keep that vision locked in your imagination instead of living it in reality. The shift happens when you begin making choices as if you are already that person. You may not have the results yet, but you can adopt the habits. You can practice the mindset. You can carry yourself in a way that aligns with your vision. If the person you imagine wakes up early, plans their day and takes care of their health, start doing that now. If they are bold in business decisions, practice making bold but informed moves. If they invest time in learning, block time for daily growth now. Your future self is built from your present behavior. One of the most powerful questions you can ask yourself is, if I were already the person I want to be, what would I do in this situation? That question forces you to step into the mindset of your ideal self. It moves your focus from fear, doubt, or convenience to alignment with your ultimate vision. If the person you imagine would push through discomfort, you do it. If they would speak up instead of staying quiet, you speak up. If they would handle a setback with determination instead of frustration, you choose determination. Over time, those decisions shape your identity until the gap between the imagined you and the real you disappears. Many people hold themselves back because they think they need permission to live differently. They wait for validation from others, or they wait until they feel ready. But readiness is a trap. It keeps you waiting instead of acting. You will never feel completely ready to make big changes, because those changes require you to step into unfamiliar territory. The only real readiness comes from acting before you feel prepared and proving to yourself that you can handle it. There is also a tendency to believe that you need certain conditions in place before you can behave like your ideal self. You tell yourself you will start acting confident when you have more success. You will start being disciplined when you have more motivation. You will start taking risks when you have a safety net. But this is backward thinking. Confidence comes from acting confident before you have proof. Discipline comes from choosing discipline when you least feel like it. The courage to take risks grows from taking small risks first and building your tolerance for the bigger ones. Think about the person you keep imagining. Picture their daily habits, their level of energy, their way of thinking. Then compare it to your current habits and mindset. Where are the biggest differences? That is where your work begins. If the person you imagine is in great shape but you are neglecting your health, start moving your body today. If they are financially smart but you have no system for saving or investing, start learning and applying those principles now. If they have a network of valuable connections but you isolate yourself, start reaching out to people who can inspire and challenge you. Behavior shapes identity. The more you behave like your future self, the more you will start to see yourself that way. When your identity changes, your standards rise. You stop tolerating the habits, excuses and situations that belong to the old version of you. You begin protecting your time, your energy, and your goals like they are non-negotiable, because for your ideal self they are. You also have to prepare for resistance. The moment you start acting like the person you want to become, you will feel friction. Old habits will try to pull you back. Your environment may not support the change. People who are comfortable with the old version of you may push back against the new one. This is normal. Growth always disrupts the patterns you've been living in, and not everyone, including parts of yourself, will welcome it at first. You have to push through this stage until your new behavior becomes your new normal. This process requires consistency. You cannot behave like your ideal self once in a while and expect lasting change. The real transformation comes when you show up as that person day after day, even when it feels repetitive, even when no one is watching, even when progress is slow. Each consistent action becomes a brick in the foundation of your new life. It also helps to track your progress. Keep a journal where you record how you showed up like your future self each day. Write down the decisions you made that align with your vision. Note the moments where you slipped back into old habits and think about how you will handle them differently next time. This self-accountability keeps you focused and reminds you that change is not just an idea, it is something you are living. Sometimes the changes you need to make are small but powerful. It could be as simple as changing the way you speak to yourself. If your imagined self uses language of confidence and possibility, stop speaking with doubt and limitation now. It could be improving your posture, dressing in a way that reflects self-respect, or being more intentional in how you spend your time. Small adjustments, repeated daily, create massive shifts in how you feel and how others respond to you. There will be moments when the old version of you tries to take over, and you have to consciously choose the new one. This is where discipline matters most. The difference between people who stay stuck and those who transform is not that one has more opportunities, it's that one refuses to keep living as their lesser self. They decide that acting like their future self is not an option they turn on and off. It's who they are becoming no matter what. You can keep imagining who you want to be for years, or you can begin living as that person today. You can wait for some magical moment when the change feels easy, or you can decide that now is the time to align your behavior with your vision. The sooner you start behaving like your ideal self, the sooner your reality begins to catch up with your imagination. The life you want is not something you stumble into. It is something you build, and it is built from the actions you take each day. If you keep acting like the person you've always been, you will keep getting the results you've always had. If you start acting like the person you've always wanted to be, you will begin moving toward the life you've always imagined. The choice is yours, and it starts now, in this very moment with the next decision you make.
Chapter 7. Refuse to let yesterday's version of you make decisions. Every day, you stand at a crossroads between who you were yesterday and who you are becoming today. Too many people keep living under the rules of their past selves, letting old habits, old fears, and old limitations dictate their choices. They make decisions as if they are still the same person they were last year, last month, or even last week. But the truth is, if you are serious about growth, yesterday's version of you has no place deciding what your future will look like. That version of you lived with a different level of awareness, a different set of skills, a different level of courage. If you want a better life, you must refuse to let that outdated self call the shots today. The biggest trap people fall into is assuming that because they have always acted a certain way, they must keep acting that way. They forget that every moment is a fresh opportunity to choose differently. They say, "This is just who I am," without realizing they are describing an older version of themselves. They let old patterns steer the wheel, even when those patterns are no longer serving them. If your old self avoided challenges, today's self can take them on. If your old self lived in fear of change, today's self can step into it. But that will only happen if you consciously take control of the decision-making process. Your past self was shaped by your experiences and your understanding at the time. Maybe they lacked confidence. Maybe they didn't know how to manage time well. Maybe they let emotions run the show. That version of you might have made choices out of fear, insecurity, or lack of discipline. If you keep letting that version decide how you live today, you will repeat the same mistakes over and over, and no matter how much you say you want change, your life will stay in the same cycle. Making decisions from the perspective of your current and future self requires awareness. It means catching yourself when you feel the pull of old thinking. It means asking, am I deciding this because it's the right choice for who I want to be, or because it's what I've always done?
That single question can save you from repeating history. It forces you to pause and consider whether the voice you're listening to is coming from growth or from habit. Sometimes your past self will try to convince you that nothing is wrong with sticking to the old way. It will remind you that those choices feel safe, that they require less effort, that they protect you from the discomfort of uncertainty. But that's the trick. Comfort is the anchor that keeps you tied to the old you. If you want to move forward, you must be willing to feel the discomfort of making new decisions. Think about it in practical terms. If yesterday's you skipped opportunities because you didn't feel ready, what would happen if today's you said yes instead? If yesterday's you avoided conflict by staying silent, what would happen if today's you spoke up respectfully, but firmly? If yesterday's you ignored your health, what would happen if today's you made choices that supported it? Every shift begins with a single decision made by the version of you that refuses to be ruled by the past. It's also important to recognize that your old self will show up most strongly in moments of stress. When you are tired, under pressure, or unsure of what to do, it is easy to fall back into old patterns. This is why preparation matters. Decide in advance how the upgraded version of you will handle those moments. Have a plan for how you will respond when you feel the pull of the past. That preparation gives you a fighting chance to choose differently when it counts. Your environment can also keep you stuck in yesterday's thinking. If you surround yourself with people who expect you to act the way you always have, it becomes harder to change. They may not do it intentionally, but they have grown used to the old version of you and may unconsciously push you to stay the same. If you want to break free, you must be willing to set boundaries. You may need to spend more time with people who see your potential and encourage your growth. Refusing to let your past self decide for you is also about breaking emotional attachments. Sometimes we hold on to our old ways because they are tied to our identity. You might think, I'm just not a morning person, or I'm not good with money, or I'm not a natural leader. These are not truths. They are conclusions your past self came to, often without much evidence. If you keep accepting them as facts, you will live within those limits forever. Challenge them, experiment with the opposite, give yourself permission to prove the old you wrong. One of the most effective ways to separate yourself from the old you is to set clear standards for the new one. Decide how the upgraded version of you thinks, speaks, and acts. Decide how they spend their time, how they handle problems, how they respond to opportunity. Then hold yourself accountable to those standards every single day. The more you live by them, the weaker your connection to the old you becomes. You will notice that making decisions as your future self feels different. It may feel uncomfortable at first, but it also feels empowering. It shifts your sense of control. Instead of being a prisoner of your past, you become the author of your future. Each time you override an old habit with a new decision, you reinforce the identity you are building. Over time, the old you loses influence, and the new you becomes your default. It is also important to understand that growth is not about completely erasing your past self. There are lessons, strengths, and valuable experiences you can carry forward. But you must be selective. Keep what serves your progress. Leave behind what holds you back. The point is not to deny who you were. It is to make sure who you were does not control who you are becoming. Every major change you want in life will require this shift. You cannot move toward a higher standard while letting a lower standard make the decision. You cannot pursue bold goals while letting old fears decide what risks you take. You cannot live with purpose while letting past excuses decide how you spend your time. Change happens when you take the wheel away from your past self and hand it to your present and future self. In the end, this is about taking ownership. It is about understanding that every decision is shaping your future, and you alone decide which version of you will make those calls. You can keep listening to the voice of the past, or you can raise your standards and let the voice of growth lead. One will keep you where you are, the other will take you where you want to go, and the difference between the two begins in the very next choice you make. Chapter 8. Make one bold change today to disrupt your old cycle. Change often feels overwhelming because people think it requires a complete overhaul of their lives all at once. They imagine they need to rebuild everything from the ground up before they can see results. But real transformation begins with a single choice, one bold move that breaks the rhythm of your old cycle. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be massive in scale. But it does have to be strong enough to interrupt the flow of habits, excuses and patterns that have been keeping you in place. That first decisive action sends a clear message to yourself. You are no longer willing to live on repeat. The reason a bold change works is because it disrupts your comfort zone. You've been running the same routines so long that they have become invisible to you. You wake up, go through the motions, and end the day in almost the exact same place you started. A bold action forces you to break that loop. It shakes your thinking, it interrupts your autopilot, and it demands a different response from you. That moment of disruption can open the door to lasting growth if you use it well. Bold changes don't always come from grand gestures. Sometimes it's making a decision you've been avoiding for years. It could be quitting a bad habit cold instead of slowly tapering off. It could be applying for a position you never thought you were ready for. It could be committing to a daily discipline that challenges you in ways you have resisted. It could be removing yourself from a toxic environment you have been tolerating for too long. The size of the action matters less than the strength of its impact on your routine. One of the reasons bold change works is because it creates momentum. It's much harder to stay stuck once you've taken a leap forward. That leap may feel uncomfortable, even scary, but it forces you into a new space where your old habits no longer fit. The act of doing something different tells your mind that you are serious about change, and your behavior begins to align with that new identity. The challenge is that most people talk themselves out of bold moves before they even begin. They overthink, they wait for certainty, they want a guarantee that the change will work before they make it. But guarantees do not exist. Bold change is uncomfortable precisely because it carries risk, and that risk is the price of growth. If you want a breakthrough, you must be willing to step into the unknown and trust yourself to handle what comes next. Today is the best time to take that leap, because every day you wait, the old cycle grows stronger. The more you repeat your current habits, the more ingrained they become. If you know the way you've been living is not taking you where you want to go, there is no logical reason to give it one more day. You don't need perfect conditions, you need a decision. Think of the one area in your life that frustrates you the most. It could be your health, your career, your finances, your relationships, or your personal growth. Ask yourself what single action would create the biggest disruption in that area. If it's your health, maybe it's committing to a structured exercise plan, starting now. If it's your career, maybe it's enrolling in a course that forces you to level up your skills. If it's your finances, maybe it's cutting a major unnecessary expense and redirecting that money towards savings or debt payoff. Whatever it is, it should feel big enough that you know your old self would resist it. That's how you know it's worth doing. Bold change requires commitment. It's not something you test for a day or two and then abandon when it gets inconvenient. You have to decide that this is the new standard, that you will push through the initial discomfort until it becomes your new normal. If you treat it as temporary, you will slide back into your old cycle as soon as it gets hard. You also have to prepare for the resistance that comes after the decision. Your mind will try to pull you back with doubts. It will remind you of past attempts that didn't work. It will try to negotiate with you, to get you to slow down, to ease up, to go back to the familiar. You cannot entertain those negotiations. A bold change works only if you protect it fiercely, especially in the beginning. One way to strengthen your resolve is to make your change public. Tell people you trust what you are doing. Announce your commitment in a way that adds accountability. When others know about your decision, it becomes harder to quietly abandon it. The pressure of accountability can push you to follow through on days when your motivation is low. Another way is to connect your change to a clear reason why it matters. Don't just take action for the sake of action. Tie it to a vision of the future you want to create. Know exactly what this bold move will help you escape from and what it will help you move toward. That clarity will fuel you when the discomfort makes you question your decision. Bold change is also about replacing rather than simply removing. If your action involves quitting something, replace it with something better. If you cut out hours of mindless entertainment, replace them with focused learning or productive work. If you walk away from a draining commitment, replace it with one that builds you up. By filling the space with something aligned to your goals, you make it harder for the old cycle to creep back in. It's worth remembering that the first bold step often leads to more. Once you've proven to yourself that you can make a major change, your belief in your ability to transform grows. You begin to see possibilities you ignored before. You start asking bigger questions about what else you can improve. Your confidence expands and your actions follow. Many people underestimate the power of just one decisive change. They think transformation requires dozens of different changes at once, but often it's the first one that unlocks the rest. That single disruption can alter the way you see yourself. It can raise your standards. It can shift the kind of opportunities you notice and the kind you pursue. If you are waiting for a sign, this is it. You already know which cycle you want to break. You already know which habits have been running your life without your permission. You already know which patterns you are tired of living inside. The decision now is whether you will keep talking about change or finally create it. Make that one bold change today. Not next week. Not when it feels easy. Now. Put yourself in a position where you cannot slip back into the old pattern without making a conscious choice to abandon your progress. Make it big enough that it gets your full attention. Make it meaningful enough that it changes how you see yourself. And then protect it with everything you have until the new way becomes the only way. Because the truth is, your old cycle will not end on its own. It will keep running until you interrupt it. And the longer it runs, the harder it is to stop. One bold change is enough to turn the tide, but only if you choose it and commit to it fully. Once you do, you'll look back and realize that was the moment everything began to shift.
Chapter 9. Stay aware of every small choice you make each day. The direction of your life is built on the choices you make, and not just the big ones that people often think about. It's the small, almost invisible decisions you make throughout each day that add up to shape the kind of future you end up living. These choices are so routine that they rarely feel important in the moment. What time you get out of bed, whether you prepare for the day or just drift into it, how you spend the first hour after waking, whether you focus on the task at hand or let distractions pull you away. These might feel like small moments, but they are actually building the habits that create your results. The challenge is that most people move through their day without noticing these choices at all. They are made automatically based on habits formed long ago. That's why so many people feel like life is happening to them rather than being shaped by them. The truth is, life is shaped by them. They just aren't paying attention while it's happening. If you want to live with more intention, you have to stay aware of every choice, no matter how small, because every choice is either moving you closer to your goals or pulling you away from them. Awareness changes everything. When you start paying attention to your small decisions, you start seeing patterns you've been blind to. You notice that you delay getting started on important work in the morning by checking your phone. You notice that you reach for unhealthy food when you're stressed, instead of dealing with the stress directly. You notice that you avoid certain tasks because they make you uncomfortable. These patterns have been running your life quietly in the background, and without awareness they will keep doing it indefinitely. It's easy to dismiss these little decisions as unimportant, but that's a dangerous mistake. Every time you make a choice, you are voting for the kind of person you are becoming. You don't have to be perfect,
But if most of your votes are for habits that work against you, you will not like the results. And by the time the results are visible, it's too late to go back and change those earlier choices. That's why awareness in the moment matters so much. Being aware doesn't mean overthinking every single move you make. It means catching yourself when you're about to choose the easy option over the right one. It means noticing when you're about to give in to distraction instead of staying focused. It means asking yourself throughout the day, is this choice helping me build the life I want, or is it keeping me in the same place? That one question can pull you out of autopilot and back into conscious decision-making. This level of awareness requires slowing down your thinking just enough to observe what you're doing. You don't have to spend hours analyzing each decision, but you do have to pause long enough to recognize it as a decision. This is where most people fall short. They move too quickly from impulse to action without that small pause in between. That pause is where you can choose differently. The first step is to start tracking your small choices. For a few days, write down the moments when you decide how to spend your time, what to work on, what to eat, how to respond to situations. You'll be surprised by how many decisions you make without even realizing it. You'll also see the areas where you consistently make choices that don't align with your goals. This kind of self-honesty can be uncomfortable, but it's also liberating because it gives you the power to change. Once you see the choices clearly, you can replace unhelpful ones with better ones. If you notice that you start your day in a rush because you stay in bed too long, you can decide to get up earlier. If you see that you lose hours to social media, you can set limits and replace that time with something more productive. If you realize that you react negatively when something doesn't go your way, you can practice responding with patience instead. Every time you make a better choice, you strengthen the habit of awareness and decision-making that supports your growth. It's important to understand that small choices compound. One healthy meal doesn't transform your health, but consistent healthy meals over time do. One day of focused work doesn't build a career, but showing up with focus every day does. One conversation won't fix a relationship, but consistently showing respect and care will. Each small choice is like a single step in a journey. You may not see the impact after one or two, but after hundreds or thousands, you find yourself in a completely different place. Staying aware of your small choices also protects you from the slow drift into mediocrity. You don't wake up one day and find yourself far from your goals. It happens gradually, one small compromise at a time. You skip the workout because you're tired. You waste the afternoon because you're distracted. You put off the important conversation because it's uncomfortable. Alone, these moments seem harmless. But stacked together over weeks, months, and years, they define the limits of your life. Awareness is what stops that drift before it becomes your reality. Another benefit of paying attention to small choices is that it helps you build self-respect. When you notice yourself making decisions that align with your values and your vision, you start trusting yourself more. You begin to see yourself as someone who follows through, someone who acts with intention, someone who doesn't just talk about change, but lives it. That self-respect becomes fuel. It makes you want to keep showing up for yourself because you like the person you are becoming. This process is not about perfection. There will be days when you make poor choices, when you fall back into old habits, when you let the moment slip by without awareness. The point is not to be flawless. The point is to catch yourself more often and recover more quickly. The sooner you notice you've drifted, the sooner you can steer yourself back on course. Awareness shortens the gap between mistake and correction, which means you lose less time and momentum. It also helps to set clear intentions at the start of the day. Decide in advance what kind of choices you want to make. This primes your mind to recognize those opportunities when they come. If you know you want to spend your morning on your most important work, you'll be more likely to notice when you're about to waste. If you know you want to eat healthy meals, you'll be more likely to pause before grabbing something that doesn't align with that goal. Setting intentions creates a filter for your decisions. Your environment plays a role in this as well. If you're surrounded by constant temptation or distraction, it's harder to make good choices consistently. That's why part of awareness is designing your surroundings to support the behavior you want. If you want to read more, keep a book where you can see it. If you want to avoid junk food, don't keep it in your house. If you want to work without distraction, put your phone in another room. Make the right choice the easy choice. Over time, as you practice noticing and improving your small decisions, you'll find that you naturally begin to make better ones without as much effort. The habits you've built will start working in your favor instead of against you. The old patterns will fade, replaced by new ones that support your goals. This is how lasting change is created, not in sudden bursts of motivation, but in the quiet, consistent improvement of your everyday choices. Your life is not decided in a single dramatic moment. It's decided in the countless small decisions you make each day. They are the threads that weave together the fabric of your future. If you want that future to be strong, intentional and fulfilling, you must pay attention to those threads as you create them. Awareness is the skill that makes this possible, and it is available to you right now. The question is whether you will use it. If you stay aware, if you choose with intention, if you refuse to let your small decisions go unchecked, you will find yourself living a life that feels deliberate rather than accidental. And when that happens, you will know that your future is no longer just something you hope for, it is something you are building, one choice at a time.
Chapter 10. Build a new identity through actions you repeat with purpose. Who you believe yourself to be shapes how you think, what you do, and what you allow yourself to achieve. Your identity is not fixed. It's not a permanent label stamped on you at birth. It's something that has been built over time, formed by the actions you've taken repeatedly, the choices you've made consistently, and the way you've interpreted your own life experiences. If you want to change your life in a meaningful way, you cannot simply try harder while clinging to the same old self-image. You must build a new identity, and the only way to do that is through actions you repeat with purpose. Many people try to change their lives by chasing results. They want to be healthier, wealthier, more disciplined, more confident. They focus on the goal without first becoming the kind of person who naturally achieves it. This is why so many attempts at change fail. They are fighting against the identity they still believe in. You can't consistently act in a way that contradicts who you think you are. If you believe you're someone who always gives up, you'll find ways to quit, even if you start strong. If you see yourself as undisciplined, you'll keep proving it to yourself through your behavior. Real transformation starts when you shift your focus from "What do I want to achieve?" to "Who do I want to become?" Once you have clarity on the kind of person you want to be, the path forward becomes clear. You stop asking what will give you the quickest result and start asking what will reinforce this new identity. If you want to see yourself as a disciplined person, you don't wait for motivation, you commit to doing what needs to be done regardless of how you feel. If you want to see yourself as a strong communicator, you put yourself in situations where you practice speaking and listening well. If you want to see yourself as healthy and fit, you live in a way that supports that belief every day. These actions must be done with intention, not just occasionally when it's convenient. Repetition is the key. Your brain learns who you are through what you repeatedly do. Every time you act in alignment with your new identity, you cast a vote for it. One action alone doesn't define you, but repeated actions over days, weeks, and months begin to rewrite the way you see yourself. That's why you can't rely on occasional bursts of willpower. You have to create a system that allows you to live your new identity every day until it becomes natural. The mistake many people make is thinking they need to feel like their new identity before they act on it. They wait to feel confident before they take confident actions. They wait to feel like an athlete before they train like one. They wait to feel successful before they work with discipline. This is backward. You don't wait until you feel ready.
You act now, and the feeling catches up later. Your identity will shift only when you've given it enough evidence through consistent action. Purpose is what gives these actions power. If you go through the motions without a clear reason why they matter, they won't stick. You must know exactly why you're doing what you're doing, and what kind of person you are proving yourself to be with each action. This connection between purpose and action makes it harder to quit, even on days when progress feels slow. Your environment can help or hinder this process. If you're trying to build a new identity, you need surroundings that make it easier to act in alignment with it. If you want to see yourself as a learner, surround yourself with books, courses, and people who value growth. If you want to see yourself as someone who takes care of their health, stock your kitchen with good food, plan your workouts in advance, and remove temptations that encourage the old behavior. The right environment reduces friction, making it more natural to live your new identity daily. The people you spend time with matter too. They influence how you see yourself, sometimes more than you realize. If the people around you constantly remind you of your past mistakes or treat you like you haven't changed, it becomes harder to step into your new self. Seek out people who see you for who you're becoming, not just who you've been. Their support can reinforce your efforts and give you the confidence to keep going when doubt tries to pull you back. You also have to prepare for resistance from within. Your old identity won't disappear without a fight. It will show up in the form of self-doubt, excuses, and the temptation to fall back into familiar habits. This is normal. It's your brain's way of trying to keep you in the known and predictable. But each time you choose the new action over the old one, you weaken the old identity's grip and strengthen the new one. Over time, the balance shifts, and the new self becomes your It's important to track your progress, not just in terms of outcomes, but in terms of identity-based actions. Keep a record of the times you acted in alignment with your new self. This creates visible proof that you are changed. On days when it feels like you're not getting anywhere, you can look back and see how far you've come. That record becomes a reminder that change is happening, even when it feels slow. Be patient with yourself. A new identity doesn't take hold overnight. It's built the same way your old identity was, through repetition over time. At first, it might feel forced, like you're pretending. That's fine. You're not pretending to be someone else. You're practicing being who you want to be. Eventually, the practice becomes natural, and the natural becomes automatic. Your new identity will demand new standards. You'll start to notice when your actions don't match who you're becoming. You'll feel a stronger pull to do the right thing, because it's now tied to your sense of self. This is one of the most powerful shifts that can happen. You're no longer just trying to hit goals, you're protecting the integrity of who you are. Building a new identity through purposeful actions is not just about improving your life, it's about reclaiming authorship over it. Instead of letting old labels define you, you define yourself. Instead of letting circumstances dictate who you are, you decide and prove it through what you do every day. This is the deepest form of change, because it transforms not just your results, but the foundation of your life. The person you've been doesn't have to be the person you remain. Every day is an opportunity to prove to yourself that you are becoming someone stronger, wiser, and more capable. Every action you take with purpose is a step toward making that identity real. Keep taking those steps, and eventually you won't have to convince yourself you've changed. You'll know it, and so will everyone else.